This is Andy B on the Get Your Home show, and I am joined very excitedly by somebody who's not even in the Europe or the UK or anything, which is very exciting. We chatted a little bit before. Hello, Marinella.
Hello, Andy.
It's great to see you again. We chatted a little while ago, but for those that are excited, did I get it right? You're in Brazil.
I am in Brazil presently, yes.
Which is really exciting. I have spoken to people in all parts around the world. I suspect Brazil might be the furthest destination yet, which is kind of cool.
Excellent. I'm a pioneer in every sense of the word, obviously.
Amen to that. Now, I think you said you're in Brazil for a birthday, which is really cool. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'm in Brazil it was my mother's birthday yesterday. She's 94. So we had a big celebration here. And my husband came with me. My husband is English as well. I live in England, but we came here. My sister's here, so it was a bit of a family reunion. So it was excellent little party we had yesterday.
Excellent. So your mum's 94. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah, she's kind of some. She said, "Yes, don't know how I'm still here." I said, "Well, we're glad you are. We're grateful that you're still here."
Now we connected because Andy Godfrey, who's our movie critic, he went to a film festival of some sort. I've forgotten which one. Was it in Leeds or something like that?
Sheffield,
Sheffield,
Sheffield.
not too far away. And he met you. He says, "Oh, Andy, you should chat with Marinella." So here we are.
Yes, absolutely. So we met. Andy was he was participating. I think he was part of the panel at it's Sheffield Christian Film and Media Festival, a very friendly little festival, and they do, as the name suggests, content that's Christian inspired. So my film is not. I don't know if my film is a Christian film. It's not a faith film, but it's like I wouldn't. It's like a mystery, psychological mystery, but it's based on It's called the Messiah, and it's about the Messiah as written by Handel, and it's set in the 18th century. It's about the morality of sin, and somebody told me the other day, a director I know said it's quite a scary film, and I'm always surprised about the impact my films have on people. I said, "Really, is it scary?" I suppose it is a bit scary because it's like the threat of rotting in hell if you break the laws of God, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No, that can be quite scary to some, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So I know that you've done film work in different contexts. What have you actually done within the film industry?
What I think the right question would be, what haven't you done? But
Oh, okay.
I'll start saying what I can think of right now. I've been working in film and TV for good 30 years, since I first came to the UK. So I've done a lot of high-end TV series, big feature films, always as a script supervisor. I've done a bit of script editing, and I started directing my own films maybe 20, 15 years ago. Actually, I think it's more like 20 years ago. Um, and I've also done directing second unit, directing splinter unit. When I say splinter unit is whenever somebody makes a film, there's the main unit with all the actors, and to shoot little details that you need for a film, like, for example, cut from a person's face to their hand picking up something important to the plot. Sometimes the main unit doesn't have time to do that, so it's left for us, the splinter unit, to go and shoot that. Sometimes you don't have the actor's hand, so you get somebody who has a similar looking hand with a costume, and they go there and do exactly what the actor would have done on the day. So I've done quite a bit of that as well. I quite enjoy doing that, because you don't have the big responsibility of the set, especially when you're working with big stars, which I've done quite a few times, because you have to be quite, what's the word? Quite diplomatic, have a lot of tact to deal with people who are huge in the public eye. But I think I'm pretty good at that as well. So that's what I've done. I'm very experienced in film, across film and TV, and now I've decided, I'd rather just do my own things because sometimes I realize I know more than the people that I'm working for. And so I think it's time to just go solo, big time.
Excellent. I see. I would never have thought about the fact they had something else. I just assumed that was another camera angle at that time because that's how my brain would imagine that was done.
Yes, well, sometimes it depends on the budget and what kind of situation you're shooting. If you have like a, let's say a TV series that they don't have a lot of money for different angles, then they will grab, sometimes they'll have two cameras running at the same time. And then, for example, B camera is the surplus camera. They'll get what they can, and then they'll get the detail with the actor's hand there, and we have time to do that. But it's all very rush. But if you have a feature film, it's a lot more of studied way of doing things. You know, the whole thing is lit specifically.
Mm.
Like, for example, I worked on a series for Apple TV called Disclaimer, which is quite a famous thing with Kate Blanchett. And they had three directors of photography. They had a lot of money for that. So every time we needed to shoot a little detail like that, we'd have a whole time to light it differently to make it look like a painting. So when you have the time and the money, that's what you do. If you don't have the time and the money, you have to kind of improvise. But usually people working in this medium, they are quite good at seizing the day and the time and shooting what needs to be shot to complete the day.
I guess thinking on your feet, how can we do this better? We've got one take to do this. Let's get it all done.
Thinking on your feet is, I would say, is the main commandment of
Huh.
filmmaking. It's the people who can really solve problems quickly, who can foresee a problem coming, and solving it very fast. They get on very well in the industry. I mean, I do, these days it's all very complicated because you have to hire people for what they look like, what their sexuality is, what their color skin is. It's not anymore for what they can do. I mean, ideally, I think in the beginning, the principle is like what they can do, but also what they look like. If you can put these all together to give an opportunity for people who haven't had opportunities, which I think, well, is fair enough.
Hmm.
But now the whole thing has become a little bit ridiculous. But, you know, that's probably for another chat.
You see, if I'm looking at something like the making of something, the bits that I am always drawn to and fascinated by, how did they discover this new way of doing something that's never done before? The Matrix, just for example, there's somebody, they jump in the air, the cameras go around them, and we're all watching that for the first time thinking, how have you just got that camera around there? Because somebody said, hey, we could do it this way. And they put loads of cameras in a circle, slightly risen at one end. So it then creates the image that we see on the screen of somebody in the air, paused as the camera's going around them. Somebody had to create that, which blows my mind.
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing because every time a new film breaks new ground and somebody had that idea. It's the same with I don't know if you remember that this is going back quite a few decades. The film by Hitchcock called Vertigo. Was it Vertigo? Yes. So Vertigo, there's a shot when James Stewart he nearly falls off and then he looks down and it's almost like the image is compressed. And you kind of think, if you don't know about filmmaking, you kind of wonder, how was that made? But then there's a whole book of Alfred Hitchcock explaining how he achieved. It's like an optical effect that
Mm.
you achieve with moving the camera forward and doing the zoom on the camera. So everything looks a bit like that. So, but it, you know, it took someone to come up with that idea. And those are the people that you want to have on side when you now also now with visual effects, it's I would say it's a little bit easier to achieve things like that because I actually think that's a bit of a cheating thing. It doesn't take a brilliant mind to think something through. You just press a button and you get the effect that you want. I call that cheating slightly, but maybe I'm of an age where I've seen stuff happening for real optically.
You see, I think you're in a position where you have the right to say that. I would not. You could because you've been there and done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been working in TV, films. You've obviously done some smaller film work yourself as well. Why did you make the film that you showed to the group at Sheffield?
Um, I wanted to, because the last film I did was more than 10 years ago. It was a 23-minute film, which went really well. But then 3 years ago, I thought I need to make something new, and I keep waiting that I'll get some finance, some funds from somewhere, and that's not happening. So it's like you have to go out and do stuff. I think even the Bible says, faith without works is dead. So I thought I'm going to make this film because that script had been sitting in my computer for 10 years. And I always read, I said, I really want to make this film. And then when I decided to do it, I started to see how much money have I got? How much am I going to need for this? In the end, the whole film cost about £30,000, which I sourced myself. And when I started to make the film, because I came back to the church because of this film called Messiah. And when I started to prep the film and I started to scout locations for, because it's like a quite a dark piece that takes place in only one location. And I thought this could be a church. And I found this amazing church in Fleet Street, just off Fleet Street. And I started to photograph because that's what you do when you're planning to make a movie. You start to mock up some camera positions to see what you would need to change in the background. This being an 18th century piece, I'd have to change quite a lot of stuff. And then I went inside the church to take some pictures from inside, and there was a choir singing inside. And I just sort of stopped everything and listened to the choir. They were singing some amazing music. And then that church pretty much brought me back to the church, and it was an Anglican church. And I kept going back. I started to attend the services, and I felt a real pull of what at the time I could only call the Holy Spirit. It was just like I felt like there was a force way above me, bringing me back, constantly bringing me back to this church. And then I went there back with my husband. We're both cradle Catholics, but we ended up in the Anglican church to watch the services. And then we went to an Easter vigil, and that was like a most beautiful service I'd ever seen. And it only deepened. This whole thing is like a supernatural thing. It only deepened. And as I started to build the film to be made, we went into so many problems to make this film. It was really hard, really, really hard. It was like, a couple of times I was going to give up. I thought this is just too much. But every time somebody would say something, and I think that's the Holy Spirit speaking. I can't believe this is just out of nowhere. And then that's kind of how I made the film. I found money where I didn't think nobody would give me money from. And when I finished the film, and I thought, wow, this film is amazing, but it's almost like I only partly did it. I feel like really God was behind me the whole way through. And then when I started to send it to festivals, a lot of festivals didn't want the film, but their reaction was very strange. They'd send me emails saying, your film is excellent. Everything about it is excellent, but we can't put it in our program. It's almost like it didn't fit anything that they were showing. They didn't know how to fit the film into their programs. So at first I was like, wow, how do I show this film? Because I think it needs to be seen. And then now we've got a distribution deal being done. So it will be available on streaming somewhere. I don't know where. But I think, well, that's, I'm sure if God guided me to make the film, he'll guide it to be seen, I'm sure. So that's kind of, that's one of the lessons from my return to the faith is like, it's not all up to me. I can do part of it, but the rest I leave it to God.
Which I'm always very glad that I'm not needing to do every bit of it. God's just asking us to come with an open heart, and we let him do the bit, the stuff, the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got a film, you've made it. Because I was going to say, when you make a film, my really, really rudimentary understanding is, I don't know, Paramount, Disney, whatever. They get a film, they commission it, they get it made. Obviously, it's going to cost them lots of money for actors and electricity and stages and all of that. And then they have to advertise it, get it to cinemas. And I was going to say, how do they make their money back? Is it just ticket sales? I mean, how does money get back to people like you who've actually made the film?
Well, I think the whole landscape is changing so much because there used to be cinema tickets, the distribution, cinema distribution worldwide. But then you'd have to look at films like The Lord of the Rings, which is actually coming back to cinemas here in Brazil. They're screening them in cinemas for a whole new generation, which I think is really cool because I love those films. And then and something big from Disney, the superhero ones. That's a different beast. You've got these massive films. They've got a whole budget for not only distribution but publicity, marketing. Because otherwise, if people don't hear about the film, they won't go and see it. This is the drama for independent film because there is once you've made the film, the mistake is putting all your money into the making of the film, and then there's nothing left for you to even get like 2 weeks at a cinema and a couple of ads in a newspaper, for example. Some films, it's very rare to see a film that gets out by word of mouth, but it has happened in the past. But it's almost like you cannot plan for it. You cannot predict this. And even people who they sort of plow cash into films like the Spielbergs, the Disneys of this world. You can never be sure whether a film is going to be a hit. There is no magic formula for it. You can promote it to death, but it doesn't guarantee that it's going to be a success. I mean, it helps if the film is good. But then again, for me, it's like there's a threshold. The threshold for me is if it's good technically, then I'll either like it or I won't. That it's my personal taste. But for me, it has to be good technically. It has to have the kudos of technicality, like good acting, good camera work, good lighting. And then the rest of it will be like whether it's something that people will like, or there'll be something special about one of the actors in it, or there'll be a theme that speaks to people, speaks to people's hearts. I think the problem at the moment is that there's not a lot of just straight drama, straight family films that people can go and see. Everything, there's some kind of agenda, there's some kind of reason why it's being made, and not reason beyond just being a drama, just being a straight romance. Nothing trying to impose your way of life to other people, as it used to be with films made, let's say, before 2010. These days, all the films I'm watching, they were all made before 2010. It's very rare that I go and see a new film now. Sometimes I go because I want to see the technical side from my perspective. I need to see what is the new stuff that's being done in terms of technical achievements. What is like, let's say, because visual effects is a big thing now. Now, there's something called VP, which is called virtual production. And this is starting to be sort of advertised. I find it a little bit fake, but basically you get the actors and you construct your whole world in LED backgrounds. So you don't have to go anywhere. You just shoot a film in a studio, even if it's shot somewhere. You can light it as if you were there, but everything is a virtual reality thing. And it's not really my thing. I prefer to just have some truth to what I'm showing.
I know we watched Mamma Mia many years ago when that came out, watched the making of that. And I would have had no idea that so much of the set was made in a studio. I think it was Pinewood. They made the studio, they lit it because it was just easier for so many different reasons. They could control the lighting and the weather and then they had the breeze or they had sunshine, but it was controlled that made it quicker to produce and cheaper.
I mean, usually in a film like that, you have somebody will break down the screenplay and see what is it that we need to shoot outdoors. Then they'll make a list of all the scenes that need to be shot outdoors, out of sequence. Then you go to the location, and then of course a film like Mamma Mia with big stars, big budget, you need to take like 200 people in your crew. You need to house them. You need to pay for their hotels, their per diems, their food, their transport. That costs a lot of money. So people will, even a production like that, they will say, let's keep it to the basics. Shoot everything you need to shoot out there, and the rest, then it's a controlled environment. You don't need to pay for crew hotels because they're all in their environment. You don't need to You only need to feed them when they're on set, because that's you kind of have to feed people, otherwise they go off in all directions going
They're not like
looking for
that, do they?
restaurants.
They won't like it.
Yeah, no. So it's a cost cutting thing, but it's also you have to make the most of a location. And how do you do that? You just choose the best things, and then once you get there, for example, they're shooting in a Greek island, because I know people who worked on that film, and you take cranes, which are massive pieces of equipment that you have to cross Europe in trucks. Sometimes you can hire them from, I don't know, let's see, they were in Greece. They would have hired that from Panavision Austria or Panavision Czech Republic, because these are hubs that have their own production facilities. So there's somebody who's thinking about what's all that going to cost us to take all this stuff there. Let's stay there for as long as you need, but not more than that. And then we go back to London and we shoot everything else for much reduced cost, which is why also a lot of American films are shot in London, because the crews in England are top of the range. The technical crews in England are known to be pretty much probably the best crews in the world. Well, that was the case a few years ago. I don't know if that's still the case. But that's why all the Star Wars, all the big films would be shot in London, because they'd be housed in Pinewood. And anything else that needed to be shot in a realistic location, you could just take some skeleton crew and do it there.
I love watching movies. I do like watching how it's made. You often go and they talk to the stars, the celebrities, all that. Yeah, that's very nice. Show me how you did that scene, because that's me, my brain technically. I don't understand it. I want to understand it. How did you do that shot? Like the one in The Matrix, or how they filmed so much of Mamma Mia in a studio. And it's just bizarre that they made this thing. Lord of the Rings, you mentioned. I know they had to go out and make like an entire city or the village for the hobbits. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
somebody's had to design that, build it, make it safe for actors, make a chimney look like it's a real chimney. It's all got to be designed, and it just blows my mind that this is creativity within people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. I mean, with The Lord of the Rings, it's when you, because I bought the extended version of the films. You can buy them on Apple. And when you watch the extended versions, for example, the original, let's say the first one, The Fellowship of the Ring, was a 2 hour and a half on the original length. And now they've expanded it to, I think it was a 3.5 hour film now. So you get to see a lot of stuff that you think, wow, I really wanted to see that in the original. You know, it's like quite crucial to the plot.
Yeah.
But I think at the time, was it 20 years ago, they couldn't release a 3.5 hour film. They thought nobody's going to want to watch this. But now that the whole brand has been proved to be a success, people will now go and watch a 3.5 hour film. But there are also the DVD extras, or the extras on the package that you buy. So they show you a lot of how they made the films. I like from me, I like watching it because I know what they're talking about, the technicality. Sometimes I think, how did that come about? Which is, if something I don't know, it's nice to see how it was done. But that's probably about, and I also thought this is going to be 20 years out of date. But actually, the special effects is surprisingly good.
Mm.
They still stand up to this day. And a friend of mine who works in visual effects, I was talking to him the other day, and I said, you know, the VFX on that, and he's a VFX supervisor. I said, the VFX on that looks really good still. He said, yeah, that's because it was shot on film, on 24 millimeter film. Yes, 24, 25 millimeter, you know, like the actual film. And he said it's much easier to have long-lasting special effects, visual effects on that. Differently from The Hobbit, which was shot in digital. And it was shot in a different, he used a technical, which I can't remember. He said, it's almost like, looks like a video game, The Hobbit, because it wasn't shot on film. So the visual effects would be very different on that film. So there's all that, it's all very technical. And I am a bit of a nerd with that. I love that.
I can tell, but I'm just happily enjoying it. See, we do have the extended version because honestly, why would you watch a shorter one? Really, just get the bigger
Yes.
one.
Yeah, and also I might be I'm not going to give any spoilers here because if you haven't watched the extended version, some of the plot points that you might have been, oh, I wonder why that character is there or how did they end up there. The extended version tells you why.
Hmm.
And it's not boring. It's like, wow, this is it's not boring at all. It just goes really fast.
It really does. Somehow it feels like it's speeding up the film, even though it's taking
Yeah.
longer. Yeah, big Lord of the Rings fan. What? Let's just look at faith for you. Where did faith begin? Because you said that you came back to faith when you wrote your film. You were getting involved in that. You went to a church and you heard a choir in it. You got back to faith. So what was your original faith journey like?
Before that,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't part of my life at all. I mean, like I said, I'm a cradle Catholic. I had a grandmother who was very devout, very, very devout. So I grew up watching her immersed in Catholic life, going to church all the time, getting people to come to her house to pray because we lived with my grandmother for maybe 3 years in her house. So I'd always be watching that. But I went to mass a couple of times and I didn't get it. I thought, I don't understand what's going on here. And then I kind of left. I did my first communion. Then my mother said, if you do your first communion, you need to take this seriously. I said, oh, sure. But I never went back. I said, sure. And then I never went back. And then I spent my whole life not taking, not really, it just wasn't part of my life. To me, Jesus Christ was, I always liked Jesus. I thought he's like a person who's there in the background, and I liked Jesus. It was always like that to me, but I never entered my daily life. And then making this film is what changed everything, absolutely everything. And then I went back, I started going to an Anglican church for a while. Then and then it was a lot, I thought it was a little bit lightweight. And then I went to another Protestant church. I had a baptism in a Baptist church. I was really searching, and then until now, I'm back to the Catholic faith, and I'm kind of reading a lot about it, and it's really helping me in my journey. So I think personally, I think that Jesus will find you where you are because he found me outside an Anglican church. So it doesn't really matter, I think, what denomination you are, because if you're looking for the truth, which is Jesus, you will find him. That's my take on it.
I would completely agree. So let's just try and get some of this back in order. So you were brought up in a sort of a Catholic context. It didn't really mean anything for you. How did you find yourself from that, not taking it seriously, and then end up in the filming world? Because I think a lot of people would say, "How did you get into it?" I guess I don't know. I'm guessing here. I guess a lot of people think, "Oh, that would be a great career. I want to go and do that for a living. It'd be really good." So how did you find yourself on your first set doing some film or TV work?
Well, I graduated as a graphic designer here in Brazil. And I was doing photography and I loved to write as well. And then and I loved cinema. I loved horror films, all the Hammer horror stuff. When I was a teenager, I'd watch all of that stuff. But it was all very psychological horror. It wasn't too explicit. Like these days, there are too many explicit horror films that I couldn't deal with that. I'd rather not watch that sort of stuff. But the ones I used to watch were very psychological. And I started to think, well, cinema unites music because I also used to play in a band. So I used to be a drummer in a band. It unites music, which I really like, unites writing, which I love, and unites photography, which I love. What can I do that puts all my three loves together? It has to be film. But I'd never been on a film set. So I thought I'm gonna go to England because I knew some people in England. So I went to England and I got some work at a student film at the National Film and Television School in Beaconsfield. And I actually lied. I said I'd done this job before. It was a continuity. And they believed me because they weren't paying me anything. So they said, sure, come and do a 4 week shoot for no money at all. But I was so enthusiastic that in the first couple of days, it was pretty clear to everyone that I didn't know what I was doing. It was actually quite embarrassing. but I think they felt sorry for me and they just said, okay, you're here now. We're not paying you anything. This is what you need to do. And I learned very fast. And that led to another little job, another little job. And then I kind of started to build my career in film student shoots for nothing until I was confident enough to get an actual job in I think it was a TV series pilot. I think they paid like peanuts, but it was something. And in the meantime, I was working at a restaurant earning some money. So that's kind of the first years in my career were like that, doing a bit of restaurant work, getting a job in a film, and I started to build my CV like that, my resume. And then I got an agent, then I got an accountant, and then I started to do better and better jobs, bigger jobs, because I think I was so hungry to learn and enthusiastic about the whole thing that people just like the attitude. I think attitude counts for a lot in this industry. There's a lot of talk about, oh, if you're bullied and harassed, you need to report people, which is kind of, I understand that it's not very nice for that to happen to anyone, but film sets are very pressurized environments. It costs a lot of money a day to shoot anything. So if people are not, on their toes and on the ball, mistakes happen and somebody's going to shout at you. That's just the way it is. So it's an environment for people who have a good attitude and who are not sort of constant, victimizing themselves. You have to be a bit strong to be working on films. That has been my experience. I don't know. I don't think it's changed so much. There's the appearance of, oh no, it's all different and, there's no bullying and harassment. But the last couple of jobs I did, there is. It's just a little bit more, covered up, let's say.
So coming on to what you're doing now, you've obviously got a film that you've shown last year. What's next for you in terms of what you're working on at the moment?
So I've got this project that's a film that I want to shoot in Wales, in Anglesey. It's a family drama set in the late 80s. It's a lovely script written by Lisa Baker, who is my writer for this, and she's got a film that's going to come out soon called Mad Fabulous. And we've been setting this project up for quite some time, quite a few years now. But for some reason, we're finding it a little bit hard to get the bit of finance that we need. So if anyone listening to this wants to hear more about that, they can get in touch with you perhaps. It's a lovely story. It's like a generational trauma that gets resolved by the friendship between grandfather and grandson, and there's a healing of the family through their friendship. It's about nature. It's about the wild nature of Holyhead and the Holy Mountain. So there's a strong Christian values film. It's not a faith film. It's not a Christian film, but there's there's the Christian morality is present in it.
So that's the film you're working on. How far along are you in getting that, as in being on a TV or a film or a cinema?
Well, we're kind of ready to shoot. We just need to cast the film, and we just need to find some money for it. That's where we're at. We just have to select. Yeah, we've even looked at. I've done storyboards. I've done a little trailer for the film. The script is ready. There's like what's called a pitch deck. So there's like an expose of what the film looks like. Probably some people that we'd like to cast. I actually met up with Sir Anthony Hopkins for one of the lead roles, but I think he's a little bit old now. I'd have to put him on top of a windy Welsh mountain. I think that would be a little bit tricky to do these days because he's almost 90 now.
I was going to say he's not quite as young as he used to be. As daft as that is.
No. I think he'd probably be up for it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but then you got the risk, haven't you, of what you've done? I've heard
exactly.
That's not what you want to have as your resume and your CV, is it?
No.
So that's the film you're working on at the moment.
Yes.
But that's your film. Are you working still for other people, or are you just saying no? Now I just want to do my own things.
Well, it depends who it is. I will work for directors I like, directors I admire. I will be their script supervisor, assistant. But I've sort of said no to working with people who are less experienced than me because I find it very frustrating these days. But I will work with people that I can learn from. That's, if some big filmmaker called me to do the film, then I might say yes, depending on the script, of course. But again, since I come to the faith, I find it very hard to work on things that are against Christian values. Um, I would have to really think about that. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really had that challenge yet, but we should see.
Every day, just take one day at a time. It's the simplest way,
One
isn't it?
day at a time, exactly. Yeah.
So, if this all comes off and the film you're working on actually gets shot and all the rest of it, how far away would you then be put into the cinema? Because again, my brain is, how long does it take from an idea to get it in front of you in a cinema?
Well, I think normally the trajectory of a film is like you finish the film and you submit it to top film festivals. Because if a film can have a good film festival career, then there's more of a chance of it picking distribution. But again, that's the predictable route. And I think I've come to understand that my films do not have a predictable route. I have to find a way to get them seen, and I don't know exactly what that is. I would probably send them to festivals and see how they fare. But I'm beginning to think a lot of the top film festivals, it's a bit of a rigged game. So I'm not going to waste my time sending to festivals that I know you have to know someone who knows someone. I'd rather get some distribution in whichever way I can find, and then distribution on streamers because it used to be just cinemas, and then it became DVD distribution. So people would either rent them on DVDs or this was a long time ago, Betamax, the VHS on Blockbuster, but that doesn't exist anymore. So now it's Prime Video, it's Apple TV, Netflix. Although I have to say, Netflix and Amazon Prime now they have their own studios, so they do their own stuff. I think they still buy films that they didn't make, but they're starting to sort of dominate their own production,
Yeah.
and that seems to be the tendency these days. So it's kind of a moving feast. I think I can't really say for sure where is the money coming from to pay for this. I think it's kind of an exciting time in a way because you can I could have an idea that will really sort of be a breakthrough in film distribution and use my first film to be sold across every platform. And that'll be a new way of doing things. I think we are at a stage in the world that we have to think more clearly about ways to put the films out there because I think there's a lot of hunger for content. There is not talking about this or that or that or that, but it's more like romance, drama. It's more about the genre than about the theme that is being talked about. And I think the people who actually do independent films for not huge budgets, so I don't want to be paying half of my budget to a film star. Um, I think that model is collapsing. I think we're seeing the last of the Tom Cruises, of the big Julia Roberts getting 20 million a film. I think that's not sustainable anymore. And so I think that's kind of the model I would go for. I would do films with really good, because there's so many really amazing actors out there who don't get enough opportunities because it's always the same people who get the jobs. So I would probably make films. In fact, every one of my films has been made for very little money, and it looks like it was made for 10 times what it cost. So I think I'm kind of pretty much well placed to start this kind of revolution.
Hey, someone's got to take the first step.
Absolutely. And maybe it'll be me.
Who knows? Little steps, one day at a time. Marinella, thank you. I've really enjoyed just talking movies and films because I mean, we watch movies quite a lot as a family. We definitely do. It's one of our downtimes. We don't watch TV because we haven't got a TV license here in the UK, but we watch lots of box sets. We watch lots of movies and films because it's how we enjoy just
Yeah.
winding down as a family. So for me to have a little bit of a nerd out with somebody who actually does really know what they're talking about, me, it's a great delight. So Marinella, thank you. Hope you have a great time the rest of your time in Brazil. If people wanted to get hold of you, yes, they can come through us. Of course, we'll connect to you. Do you have a website or anything like that, or is that not something you have?
I have a website. I had my own personal one, but that's kind of a bit out of action. At the moment, I've got praxisfilms.biz. Praxis Films, Praxis Films dot biz, B-I-Z.
Cool.
So you can contact me on that.
That's fine. Marinella, thank you. Really appreciate your time today and enjoy the rest of your time in Brazil.
Thank you so much, Andy. Nice to speak to you too.
See you. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.